Hello, welcome to the TCS podcast, where we're dedicated to helping you achieve extraordinary growth and success to create lasting impact on your families, companies, and communities. I'm Eric Guy, president of TCS. With us today, Mustafa Morsi. He is the founder of Push Analytics. We're going to be talking about a lot about data and using analytics to scale profitably today, gang. But let me get into this. Mustafa, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Why should we listen to you today? Uh, yeah, I mean, you've got the background. I just want to give everybody some insight into what they're in tune
No,
for.
absolutely, absolutely. First of all, really excited to be here. Really glad. I always, well, one thing you were talking about earlier is, I've worked extensively with contractors. Used to work for a very large manufacturer in the construction space, and basically a good chunk of my professional career was working with contractors, right? So, and I've worked with them over a decade, and still do on various things. So, so that's obviously one aspect of it. And I think being able to understand both the data and process side of things, as well as actually understanding like how does that translate into like construction, and specifically as it pertains to contractors, but even just more broadly, like construction or adjacent fields is like very key. And from my experience, it's been very rare to find people that kind of have both. We were actually just anecdotally, we were consulting with a company. They're in the construction field, and one of the guys got so excited, and he told the other guys like, "Where'd you find these guys? Like, we haven't found anybody that like actually can figure it out and whatever." And I'm like, I have experience in the industry. That's why. And he's like, "Oh, like okay, like cool, like great." So it's kind of a rare hybrid, I would say, of things.
Yeah, what led you to where you're at now in doing all this with Push Analytics? I mean, you mentioned your background, but how'd you get into what you're doing now for the past, I think, 5 years?
Yeah, so I mean, being different obviously opportunities presented themselves. I have partners at Push Analytics. We do have, one of my partners is actually the way we started was different angle. So one of my partners is he's done basically, you know, uh, been doing ads since ads started being a thing in 2014. He took a brand, from zero looking at like franchising just off of ads, and he was doing it like very like there was a lot of detail into it, but it was very like manual almost. So it was like, okay, like hey, we need to like really come together and be able to like do this systematically, and then we can do this for a lot of different businesses, and that's how the company was born. But then one thing led to another, led to another, led to another, and I have a lot of like B2B experience and whatever. And then we started going into uh, more of the uh, more of the process consulting, more of the B2B side, in addition to the ads, which we still do. And HubSpot reached out to us. They're like, we saw what you guys are doing. We want you guys to be a partner. It was a lot of different things like that. So.
What really what I guess what were you seeing kind of repeatedly that said, "Hey, this needs to be done better," or what needs to be done better?
Yeah, I mean, like, so for the I think there's a lot of different things that can be done better, but I actually gave a talk about this at TEDx talk earlier in the year, and it was the process of making a process, right? So but one of the things we talk about in that talk is like a lot of times you think that I tell you like, hey, how's your processes, and you might be like, I don't have any, we do it without processes, it's fine, but that's invalid, right? Because everybody has a process. Like it just means that you're not paying attention to it. But everybody has a process. What's the process? It's just a series of steps that you're taking to achieve something. So if you have a business and you have any amount of sales, well, you have a process, like, right? It doesn't mean that it's written out and documented and defined, but you have a process that's getting you from talking to somebody to collecting a check from them, right? At the end of the day, you have something. Right. And the thing I like to say is it's kind of like your diet, right? When people are like, somebody's dieting, the other guy's like, dude, I'm not. I never diet. And it's like, well, you do. Your diet is just, maybe you're on the seafood diet, right? Just seafood and you eat it. That's your diet, right? But a diet just means what you eat, like, right? And the thing is, once you start realizing that, you realize that whether or not you pay attention to it, it will affect you. Just like your diet, right? Food affects you in like a lot of different ways, like right, energy, health, whatever. Whether or not you're paying attention to it, the people who are like, crazy obsessive about their diets, or the people who are like never think of it about it once, their food is affecting them, right?
Mhm.
So it's the same thing with process for the business, right? So I think once you kind of start understanding that, then you start looking at like, okay, like we really need to pay attention to this and dive in, and we can kind of explain how to dive in a little bit too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what we want to do. Um, why do you think, especially like our contractors, and some of them are really good at it, but they've become really good at it. But why do you think a lot of the contractors just avoid their data or feel overwhelmed by it?
So yeah, I mean, I would say that the thing with construction, and you see this, I mean, it's a lot of people. It's not just specifically
Right.
construction, but
Yeah.
you see it more with construction. Sometimes it's hard to zoom out and understand, like, because there's so many day-to-day things happening. There's so many things like, okay, about the job site, like, hey, this thing is something broke. Hey, like we forgot something. Hey, we didn't get a shipment. Hey, we didn't get the wire today. Hey, like the conduit, the conduit got damaged because a forklift hit it. Like we got to go do something. Like there's so many like day-to-day little things, which are very important, obviously, and there's so much pressure to like get the job done. That sometimes it's just hard to like understand like the value of like looking and zooming out and like saying like, okay, like not that that stuff isn't important, which it is, but it's like how can I kind of zoom out and be able to also look at things a little more holistically and even organize some of the stuff so that way it's not as like overbearing, instead of like maybe we have processes in place to avoid some of the common mistakes and stuff like that. But I think people just getting into that mindset just takes a little conscious effort. That sometimes if you're running back and forth between like 7 different job sites, that you may have not had the conscious effort to like actually sit down and like do that paradigm shift.
Yeah. Like, what advice would you give to like our contractors that say, hey, look, if I said to you, what's the biggest shift that especially like our owners need to make when it comes to data, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like, look, the thing that's and I say data, but we also say like we're talking about process too,
Right.
because they
Yep.
they go hand in hand.
Correct.
Data and process go hand in hand, and they're both very important. Now, data helps you really understand like where you are and where you can be, right? And then the process, like if you don't have a process, you're not even going to be collecting the data. And they loop, right? So you have some sort of process in place. There's some tools. There's some ability to collect some data. You look at the data. You start understanding where am I at? Where am I going? And then you're like, hey, we can improve this one thing. You improve something, and then you go back, change your process. Then you come back and you're like, how did that do? Oh man, like once we added this new quoting tool, for example, like we've been able to close jobs X amount faster, or turn around quotes like X amount faster, right? Okay, what else can we do, right? So it's like that feedback loop that like you kind of keep going and improving, and it's just really important.
Yeah. Um, and I think, one of the things that I keep thinking about here that I've told a lot of our contractors, especially in our contractor school, is it's just like to look at it as just another tool, right? It's another tool in your toolkit, and it should be one that we're using, but it should provide clarity, not confusion. I think there's confusion a lot of times when we, like you said, there's always a process. You're always on a diet. Like it just matters what kind of process you're on. It's not that it's it doesn't exist. It exists. We're just trying to create more clarity through it by using it. And I think that's a good way to kind of wrap your head around it, because I do think a lot of our contractors, or any contractor for that matter, because I've worked with them even before being here at TCS, is just they're really good at what they do, and they don't want to focus. All of us, I think, all of us don't want to focus on kind of those things and just pay attention to what we're really good
Yeah,
at.
and I would say like you can even start. You don't have to eh, like a good process or good tracking doesn't have to be super complicated if it doesn't need to be. I mean, sometimes it
Right.
does, but like I think that's a mistake people also make where it's like, hey, if this thing doesn't have like 7 layers of complexity, it's not going to be good enough, right? For tracking whatever. And there's some people who are like, you want to like obsess over tracking like every nook and cranny, which sometimes there's a time and place for it, but a lot of times that overwhelms people and takes away from like, hey, we could be doing a couple of simple things, and it could be like, could really take us a long way. Um, One thing you'll run into, like you run into this a lot, especially if people are out there like selling jobs or whatever. Um, you'll be like, hey, like for example, tell somebody like you should have a system to follow up on your jobs, right? Like keep track of what you quoted and just be able to follow up. I don't need a system, man. I just remember all of them. Like, right? It's a very common thing. I remember all of them. I'm so like I've been doing this for a long time. I'm good. I remember all of them. And you know what? Like he's not going to be like, a lot of times they're not wrong in the sense like, okay, maybe they have like a 90% like remember rate, which is really good, right? Like, I mean, if you're putting out like, let's say 20 bids and you
Hmm.
remember to follow up or remember to keep track of 90% of them, that's pretty good. Now, the flip side of that though is that 10% is, let's say in this case, it's two jobs. Um, one of those jobs could have been a job that you actually could have gotten. And the time you didn't follow up on it, you don't get it. And then depending on what kind of contractor you are, I mean, that could be substantial, right? In construction,
Right.
like, I mean, a
Yeah.
job could be anywhere from, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands or more, right? So yeah, you got a couple of those every quarter. And then now you're looking at like, well, wait a minute, if I actually did the system and we were able to close one more $100,000 job, let's say every quarter, now all of a sudden it's like a $500,000 like improvement. It's just off of a small improvement. Again, not that the person didn't have a good memory or whatever. I mean, again, 90%, 80%, really good, especially when you have a million things going on. But the stuff that's falling between the cracks is still costing you.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
That's really, really, really important to notice. And again, it doesn't have to be super advanced. um Oftentimes like you want to weave in like your system with your culture with like your cadence. So for example, maybe it's like, hey, let's say bidding, because bidding is a common one that people just don't keep track of. Maybe you can buy some fancy software and you can do it that way. Maybe you don't want to, maybe you're not ready for that, not big enough for that, you don't want to do that. So maybe instead you're like, okay, we're going to have a system where maybe every job gets into this one inbox, and then somebody's going to log it on the spreadsheet that like we're bidding it, right? And then as once we complete the bid, somebody's going to mark it as done, and we're going to send it out. We're going to put like a follow-up date every week. We're going to review the spreadsheet and see, do we need to add anything, do we need to follow up on anything, and in our Monday morning meeting. So that's a system right there. There's data like being collected, right? You know what you're quoting, you have stuff. It's bare bones as far as like very easy to do, like it's just a like a Google sheet somewhere, right? But it also has like it has good redundancy in the sense like even if people like forget to check during the week, there's a good cadence. So every week we are meeting and we're going to force ourselves to look at it. So even if like something's not up to date during the week, whatever, there's a fail safe. Like we can come back on Monday and back, oh shoot, like where's the three jobs that we just quoted? Oh, like this guy forgot to add them or mark them as done. Okay, like well let's mark them now, and let's not do that again. And okay, like stuff like that. So having that kind of weave in together, I think is like really really key. And the small stuff, it just makes a huge difference. I mean, like, I do think a weekly meeting tends to like really help out. I mean, there's a concept in more on the uh, like programming side, like agile methodology, of like daily stand-ups. Yeah, I'm sure you probably heard of it.
Yep.
Like, right, some people here may have heard of it, but some may not be familiar with that side. So, it's basically like a daily meeting where it's like it's supposed to be quick. Not everybody does that way, but it's supposed to be like quick, like maybe 10, 15 minutes where it's like you take like 1 minute, like, what are you doing? What are you working on? That's probably too much for a lot of times, like, maybe on the job itself, but for like back office construction stuff, that's probably too much. But I always think like a weekly meeting is a really good, and a weekly meeting with structure. Like, hey, we're going to have like part one, we're going to follow up through, discuss any open like bids. Part two, discuss anything we need to follow up on. Part three, discuss any issues, right? Like something like that. That's a really good fail-safe. It can actually solve a lot of issues for you, right? So I think that's huge.
Let me ask you this question. All right. We asked it a lot. Um, if a contractor only tracked five numbers, what do you think they should be?
Well, definitely the number of quotes that you're sending out, and I would say per customer, because you run into this. I mean, like a lot of times, like for example, like again, I work. We're very involved both on the technical and the commercial side. Because we were selling and also basically helping apply and engineer the system. So, a lot of times it's like, hey, dude, I quoted you friggin' 15 jobs. Are you gonna give us one? Like, there's no way you lost all of them, right? Like, right? I mean, if you did lose all of them, then we have bigger problems. Are you even still in business? Like, right? So it's like keeping track of that, because sometimes again, you get all these requests, you get inundated, and you don't take the chance to zoom out. And we've had that where we're like, wait, these guys are sure they're supposed to be a really big customer potentially, but we have them. Now when we zoom out, we're looking at like, wait a minute, we just quoted them like, I don't know how X amount of work, millions of dollars, and we got nothing, or like pennies. It's like maybe we shouldn't be quoting them. It's not really worth it, right? Like, I don't, whatever, right? Or we should have a discussion. Like, guys, you got to give us something. You don't have to give us everything. Give us something. So I think that's really important. And you won't pick that up in the day to day. So the first thing is the number of jobs that you are, that I'm sorry, you're quoting. I would say after that, I mean, after that, it's divergent, right? So it's like, okay, you want to make sure that you're tracking, like what you followed up on. Maybe you could simplify it into a number, like how many things do I need to follow up on this week? So, right. So how many jobs did I quote? How many do I need to follow up on? And then, obviously how many you close, and then like, your repeat business. So you can kind of make like a small, quick napkin, like database, if you will, the number of quote requests that we got in, the number of quotes that we quoted on a given week, the number of jobs that we followed up on a given week, the number of jobs that we closed on a given week, and then like the number of like upsells or follow-ups that we were able to get. So those are like five numbers that would give you um, basically like a good understanding of your sales cycle health as a
Mhm.
contract. And
And
there's other
then,
things on the operation side, but
right.
I was focused
Yeah,
more on the
yeah,
front
yeah. I
end.
was just, yeah, I know when I say five, I'm just kind of getting
No,
where we can think about.
it forced me to actually like narrow it in on the spot, which is pretty cool. So that's
Yeah.
good.
With that, kind of piggybacking on that, where do you see, like, especially contractors most commonly misread their data, especially around profit and cash flow?
Yeah, I do see that. Like, I get into discussions with people. Once I was talking to one of my friends who's in the space, and we were talking about all these companies that like, um, they're big, but like yeah, a lot of companies like just went under, right? Bigger
Yeah.
contractors, right? And it was like, I'm like, how is that happening? Whatever, and like, how are they winning these jobs and at these margins or whatever? He's like, oh, they'll take this job at a loss. I'm like, okay, and then what? And then they fund it with the next job. I'm like, okay, but at some point the math, and he kept telling me like, and then they get this job. I'm like, it doesn't matter, right? Like if I put it all on a spreadsheet, like at some point, sure, the cash flow works this month, but at some point these numbers are going to zero out to a negative, right? Like it doesn't. If I take 10 jobs at a loss and I just keep kicking the can down the road, at some point I'm not gonna have enough money, like no matter what, right? So we kind of had that conversation. So it's like I think people um, maybe miss, and not everybody obviously does this, but people maybe don't fully have a grasp of like maybe the difference between cash flow and profit, right? And then like how profitable are they actually on a job? And I think it actually goes both ways. Like I think some people will kind of overestimate how profitable they are, and some people underestimate how profitable they are. Like I feel like I've seen both. Where it's like, no, like I need to have all these costs like embedded in so that I can take this job. But then it's like, hey, like, but you know, other people are able to do it for a lot less, and like why and whatever, right? So I think going into that and like really having a handle, and I know it's hard because I know a lot of people in the space like, look, I've been doing this for a while. This is how I've been doing it, like right, and I obviously respect that and I understand, but at the same time, this is a place that like people could take some introspection and look at it and just see like, hey, have somebody else look at it, somebody you trust, have somebody come in and just look at it and be like, look, this is how we're looking at jobs, and this is what we did on the like last few jobs. A lot of times people too, like we've worked with people, um and especially if you do more like service type work, or like you do installations or whatever. Like we do work with like different solar companies, for example, on the process side. And it's like, sometimes it's like a lot of hidden costs that they're not really accounting for anyways. And it's like, we showed up and then like, we said we're going to put the panel here, and then whatever, like the customer came, was like, actually I want it here. And then we came back and we had to move it. Right. Or like, we showed up and like, I don't know, we couldn't get something. They didn't tell us that the building was like in a high area, and then we had to like rent the forklift for the day or whatever for the day to like move the equipment like up, right? And all, this stuff is not accounted for. It's like I talk to them like, you have to like we have to have a process to like track this, right? Like otherwise, how do you actually know? Like how do you know what is a good job then? I mean, like yeah, sure, if you're big enough and you have enough jobs and some chunk of them are profitable, so you might not really feel it because maybe it's like, okay, maybe you do like 30 service jobs a month, and like you know half of them ended up going fine, profitable, and maybe 10 of them were like break even, and 5 of them you lost money on. So overall you were profitable, we had a good month, but like you should probably do something about those 5 and 10. Like it's masking the issues. And it just so happens that you had 15 jobs that went well. If you don't fix that and you don't look into that on a month where you have 20 jobs that don't go well, and you only have like 5 or 10 that go well, then you're going to be completely underwater. You're going to be like, oh my God, how do we go from like being profitable to like this? And you're not going
Yeah.
to know. Right. So it's like really important to.
All right, here's I'm going to throw this one, like practical first steps, especially for some of our members that might be listening. Uh, if they come and say, they're listening and they say, "Hey, look, Mustafa, we don't use any analytics at all. Where should we start?
Yeah, I always think the easiest thing or the most logical thing to start with is you want to look at it from the perspective. I tell people, like, look, the number one most important thing obviously in your business is going to be your customers. So let's look at from the perspective of where your customers start interacting with your business and start fixing things in that order. Okay. So in this case, it's like, okay, probably they either call your office or call to request a quote or perform on the website or, email like a RFQ or whatever, right? So that would be, that's the first step. So let's start by cleaning that up. Let's make sure that is clean. And incidentally, quoting is something that a lot of people, it just gets messy, right? It just gets, we have so many jobs, we have to bid so many jobs. It's like, it's going crazy. Like, oh, shoot, we forgot to send John his proposal, and then we forgot to follow up. And all it takes is like not following up. And then they're like, "Oh, shoot, dude, sorry. Like, I would have given you this job, but like, the other guy, my partner decided to go elsewhere because we didn't do anything for 2 weeks, and we just had to move, right? So that comes up a lot. So I would say that's probably the first place to start, right? Like, start with the inputs to your business, which is mostly going to be quoting, or whatever, even if it's on the phone or however you're doing it. If you're doing quick service calls, whatever it is, but like that process to quote, I would say is huge.
Um, what was I going to ask you? I was going to piggyback. Oh, I know. Like we talked about systems and processes and things like that. This is from your experience, right? What you see. What systems do most contractors already have that you think they're underutilizing?
Um, that is a very interesting question because I think contractors tend to lean on not getting as many systems. I mean, if you ask this for other, yeah, I'd have a different answer. But I think contractors tend to lean on not getting as many systems. I would say,
Hmm.
and that's again not that it's like, hey, we have to have a million systems in order to utilize. But I would say if we broaden that a little bit and we say that you know uh, we consider like your cadence to be a system. I would say that people are underutilizing like their cadence. Like, right, like if you have everybody in the office, for whatever, I know people are going to be on job sites, whatever. Maybe there's a time where everybody's in the office. Then that is technically a system that we're
Right.
underutilizing
Yes.
because we could have like a meeting, we could have something, we could have like, hey, every week we're going to do this, and we're going to go through this checklist of stuff to make sure we don't miss anything. So we could do that, but we're not, right? So I would say, probably like that human stuff is probably like a little bit underutilized. And again, and I totally get it because like when you're a contractor, it's always in like put out fire mode. I mean, honestly, anybody in construction, like it's always put out fire mode. Like even for us, like working for the manufacturer, like if something doesn't ship, I mean, we were like powering like building, and we would do like, yeah, I'd be working on like really big projects in the city and whatever, and like all the stuff, and it's like we're like powering all these buildings, and like without our stuff, that nothing gets powered, right?
Yeah.
So there's a delay from the factory, and then everybody's looking at you. I would tell people, it's like you walked into a movie theater and you're blocking the screen, and everybody's
Yeah.
trying to watch the movie, and they're staring you down. That's how it feels. Like
Yeah.
everybody's staring you down, and like you're the effing reason why I can't finish this movie, and it's all you. So you better be telling me when I'm gonna get like resolution, right? So it's kind of always like that when you're in the line of fire in construction, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean that is something very simple. I will agree with that wholeheartedly. That is something very simple that I do find that a lot of our contractors do underutilize. They because when they do it, it works, and then they forget and they get away from it. So
yeah, that's been like ingrained because ever since I started, we had we had a really good sales manager who was very like uh I would say almost like religious about like we have to meet every Monday morning. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, go see customers, whatever. Like, obviously if it's an emergency, but like Monday morning we would meet pretty much every Monday, and just talk about like it was very simple. What are you working on like last week? What are you working on this week? Like just very simple, right? But the amount of loose ends that would close was like massive, right? Like it's just like, okay, like, hey, we like, oh, like I might be like, I'm working on this project. Oh man, like I heard about this project. I can give you some info here. Like, I could do this. I can do this. Like I talked to that guy a while ago. Let me tell you this about them. Like, oh, let's meet after the meeting. Let's do this. And it was like in that meeting, you have to be there in person. Like, right, just you have to be there in person. And it was only like an hour. It's not a big deal. But it really like helped set the pace. And you even notice later when you saw like, okay, like, hey, eh, there is no meetings being done. Things will fall between the cracks. Like, wait, how do we not know that we were quoting this? Like, right? How do we not talk about it? Well, because we don't have a fail safe, like a checkpoint, right? So really, really key. Like, I would say, taking advantage of that is just an easy win, and you can bake so much into it. Even by just having a simple checklist for the meeting, like every meeting we're going to go through open bid, like open bids, need jobs we need to follow up on, issues on projects, wins, and like you just go through the list, right? Even those 5 numbers I told you, actually, that could even
Yep.
be a good template for the meeting.
The scorecard. Yeah, we're big proponents on that. So, um, before we go into the rapid fire section here, Mustafa, how can people get to you? What's the easiest way to connect?
But yeah, so would love to connect directly with anybody who needs help or to talk. I always love talking to contractors. So just email, pretty easy email, hello@pushanalytics.com, and just put in the title you came from this podcast, and that will route to me.
Yeah,
So yeah.
and I have not got to watch yet your TED talk. I saw that before you mentioned it. I know you mentioned it earlier, but I did see that, and I would assume that's worth watching.
Yeah, I would recommend it.
Okay,
Yeah, I've gotten pretty good feedback on it. I'm not, so I would recommend it. So,
good stuff.
it'll give you kind of like a little bit more context of, like process and stuff like that. And we do use a pretty practical example in the talk, so
Yeah,
people should be able to follow pretty well.
good stuff. Well, here comes the rapid fire questions.
Let's go.
Um, One metric every contractor ignores but shouldn't.
Uh, Follow up. I would say like the number of jobs that you follow up on. Yeah,
Dashboard or spreadsheet.
whatever works better for you. I'm not super dogmatic on it. It's more important that you like adhere to it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good advice. Most dangerous number to misunderstand.
Profitability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One word to describe healthy data.
Clean. Yeah, clean. I would
All
say
right.
clean and consistent in this case. You got to be
All right.
consistently feeding it in. So I cheated. I did 2 words, but yeah.
Best business decision you've seen driven by analytics.
Mm, man, I think to some extent, almost all good business decisions are driven by analytics. Almost all, not all.
The right
Um,
analytics.
yeah.
Yeah.
But especially as it pertains to like improvement. Yeah, obviously, if
Yeah.
you're starting something new, there's no analytics, but it pertains to improvement. Most improvement is driven by analytics, in my opinion.
Most common excuse owners make about data.
Um, don't have time. It's not important. Like, we're too busy.
Too
Like,
busy.
I gotta put out fires. Like, I don't have time for this analytics nonsense. Stuff like that. Yeah.
What's one book, in your opinion, every business reader or business owner should read?
I somebody just told me about a book, and I haven't read it yet. But the way it sounded very relevant to what we're talking about today, which is Checklist Manifesto.
Oh,
Apparently,
yeah.
yeah, he was.
Yes.
I gotta pick it up and read it. Like, so that's
It's
like
very
fresh out of
good.
my mind. And he was like, it's like because I was telling him all the stuff he watched by talk, and he's like, dude, you remind me of the guy like that wrote that book, and you're writing that book. Did you read it? I was like, no, but I think I'm gonna. So
Yeah, I think it Galati, I think
he
is
said it
his
was like a
last name.
surgeon. I haven't read it
Yeah,
first. I mean, he's like a
Anil Galati.
surgeon who
Yes.
made like a checklist and like, tried to translate that to other industries and stuff like that. So I actually, and I think he references construction in that,
Yep.
that I was
Yeah,
told.
it's a
So
very good book. I will
yeah,
second that. Yes.
yeah.
Um, Growth or stability, which should data guide first?
Um, I mean both, right? And it depends on what stage you are in your business and what you're looking for and what the objectives are like at that time. And we do have to remember that this stuff is like it's not static. It's not like, hey, we have to be doing this and we're always going to have to be doing this. It's like, your process and your data and stuff should evolve over time.
Stuff. And the last one, if you could fix one number in every contractor's business, what would it be?
I mean, I would say profitability because everything really flows into that at the end of the day, right? It's like, overall profitability, not on a even specific job, right? So it's like, and it's a fine-tuned machine. Like we got to be quoting the right number with the right efficiency and winning them at the right numbers and operating them at the right numbers. So I would really true profitability, not what we think profitability is, right? Like,
Yes.
so I would say that.
All right. There's a call to action for you there, gang. Especially our top contractors who are in our inner circle and elite programs. I mean, you've heard this before. You're hearing it from another professional. It's time to start acting on some of these things and gather the right stuff, look at it, and use it in a healthy way. So, Mustafa, thanks for being our guest. Appreciate it. Hopefully, love to have you back again in 2026 if you'll
Let's do it.
Come on again. So that's great. And just another call to action, guys. If you want to reach out and grab that TED Talk that he's done, I think you'll get a lot of information out of that. I know that's one of the call to actions that I have too. But that's all today for the TCS podcast, gang. Until next time, keep leading, keep growing, and keep winning. We'll see you next time.